Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today I'll be talking to Dr. Shazadi Harper. She's a Harley Street doctor who specializes in the very critical issue, menopause. Very rich area and the key subject which a lot of us don't like talking about. But you know what? Women, we make half of the population, and we need to get comfortable talking about that. The menopause issue is very serious. There's lots of pain affiliated with menopause. We have the mental health pain, we have the obesity pain, we have the bone muscle struggle pain. There's just so much we don't know because we're not willing to talk about it. There's also cultural background pain as well. People not feeling comfortable because their parents never talked about it. They don't know why they should talk about it. So who is Dr. Harper? Dr. Harper is the Harley Street doctor based in Harley Street. She focuses on optimizing health weights and well-beings, empowering women to be your best from inside out. I think it's so important. We look good, we feel good, and we feel sexy. And if you're not able to do this, you don't understand the purpose of living. She's all about menopause because this feels is a niche area which so many women need to understand and talk freely about the issues about it. I'm excited to talk to her about it today, and I hope you listen and enjoy our conversation. Meet Dr. Harper. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. I've got Dr. Harper here. She's based in Harley Street, and today we're having the most amazing conversation from everyone who's a woman out there. I really encourage you to really listen to today because it's all about women and our menopause time. Dr. Harper, how are you?
Oh, hi. Yeah, no, I'm fine. And thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to talk about these issues because it's really good to raise awareness.
It's so funny. I know we're going to go into the issues very soon, but before we even start, one other thing I just turned 40. I mean, 6 months ago, I turned 40, and then I started having to think about, issues of turning 40s, and one of the issues
Yeah.
menopause. But I won't get into that now because we've got most of it to talk about there. Before we start, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And you have a fascinating background from humble beginnings to now having a clinic on Harley Street. That's amazing. I really applaud you.
Exactly. I mean, look, I think that's one of the things I like to sort of share with other women, that we can do it. And I think, I am one of 8. I've got 2 brothers and 5 sisters, and my father was a bus driver, but I always wanted to be a doctor, always wanted to be a doctor. So, and I went to medical school at University College London. And to be fair, I never really wanted to be a GP, but I had my daughter almost sort of a year or so after I graduated, and I was a single mum. And because of that, I became a GP. But you learn so much as a GP, and I think, you have so many opportunities. And also having a child changes you as a person and humbles you as a person, and you learn so many things, and you become less selfish or self-orientated. And for me, having 5 younger sisters and my mother, feisty, strong woman, sort of lose a little bit of herself during her menopause, and she's now got dementia, which I think got accelerated. And also from a purely, I'm going to say purely from a selfish point of view, there was an element of me that, as a younger GP, when I used to see women over the age of 40 coming into my room with all of these vague symptoms and, sort of almost like falling apart, I was like, what's going on? I don't want to be like that. I think women need more time, more understanding. So that's why I then became a menopause and perimenopause doctor, because I thought other doctors didn't seem to know that much about it, and I wanted to be able to join the dots. And I still wanted to feel vibrant and, energized and attractive in my 40s, and not sort of go grey and dull and feel like I've lost my identity. And so that's where my part of my journey. And the Harley Street Clinic came along because so after so many years of being on my own, I had a whirlwind of a romance, which I kind of look back a little bit embarrassingly because it was so naive. And I met and married somebody a year later, and then got divorced 3 years later. And it was a very painful, acrimonious process, something that I wouldn't wish on anybody. And so during that time, I kind of had to find myself again. I had become so dependent on this man, and surprisingly, in the 4 years that we'd been together, and I had to almost like learn how to walk again. And I'd always had an idea or a vision that I wanted a clinic. And basically, I was walking in the rain, a little bit grumpy. I was going to somebody else's clinic to work. The sign was up for this lease on this floor on Harley Street. I thought, I'm going to do it. So I literally phoned them up, and the next day I went in and I signed the lease on the clinic. So, and that's how it came about. And I thought I wanted to be my own woman, have my own business, run my own clinic and give the kind of service to women that I felt that they deserved.
Wow. And I think that's such an inspirational story, especially that story of when you said, you were in a relationship and all of a sudden you're so dependent on the person, which I think so many women relate to. And all of a sudden you're finding yourself in your own, and how you decided to take that initial step to do that business. Doing that initial step of saying, because doing a business is so much that goes into it. Were you in any way, because I'm just thinking of other women who, especially with this downturn with the economy, and now thinking, okay, this is the right time probably for me to start my own business. What was going through your mind when you took up that lease at Harley Street in terms of the business side of the business, of not just because you're a doctor, but there's also the business side of running a
business side, yeah. I think then maybe there was an element of ignorance, but ignorance can be bliss. And I've always felt a little bit of a square peg in a round hole in my doctor community, because I always felt I had a lot of ideas, and it sort of used to go from A to Z quite quickly. And I think often as a woman in that situation, men don't like it, or people don't like it. A woman can't have so many ideas, and also being a woman of color. And I think it's actually quite hard. We have two things to kind of almost fight against, and that was one of the reasons to become independent and have my own clinic. From the business side of things, I think I didn't really know that much. I had been a GP partner in Oxford, but I was part of a big team, really didn't have to do that much. And this time around, I was thrown in at the deep end. And I think the lovely thing was, I'm new to London, or had been new to London. I'd met so many lovely people in those couple of years who had been really helpful. So on one hand, I had this horrible divorce going on, and on the other hand, I was meeting all these lovely people who were really warm and who wanted to help. And, I could turn to if I needed to. But basically, I did it on my own. And I'm not really sure how I did it. I think I just thought to myself, it's now or never. You've got nothing to lose, and you'll just learn on the way. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but I knew that I was good at as a clinician, I was an expert in what I did. And all I needed to do was now bring it to the forefront. And I was going to do it. And everybody said to me, it takes a few years to get a business running. And I was a little bit cocky, and I thought, it's not going to take me that long. But it does take a couple of years. And I think the first 6 months I did think, what have I done? Because obviously getting patients through the door was the hard part. Once they were in, it was great. And I felt like I was a little gem in Harley Street, which nobody knew about. And I soon learned that marketing is a huge, 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 huge thing.
It is so important. People don't realize the importance of PR marketing. I did PR marketing, and I know how important, you go to people and say you're doing PR marketing, like, oh, I don't need it. I know my job well, so I don't need any PR marketing. I was like, oh, you don't realize it's the most important tool of a job and to succeed in the business. Okay, coming on to your whole, what you really and truly do, the menopause for women. That is an intriguing niche area, because even when you Google it online, you really come out, you stand out on a, you went for a very, very, very niche area. Why did you think of doing that?
Well, one of the things was I wanted to be a real expert in something, and going back, I never really wanted to be a GP, a generalist. I wanted to be really good at one thing, and I'm a woman, and I thought that that's what women. This is this kind of service that women needed, and so I wanted to empower women. I think for me, the important part was I felt that hormonal changes or your hormones control so many parts of you. Your mood, your emotions, your hunger, and we needed to have a better understanding. And women can feel so out of control at this point in time, to the point that they are thinking about leaving their careers, their jobs, which impacts on their sort of healthy well-being, because their financial well-being is not so great. So I thought that this was an area that didn't really have a good service, and I wanted to provide that service. And what I wanted women to do was to thrive and flourish during this time, this difficult, challenging time that every woman goes through. So even if you've not had children, you will still go through this. And we are half the world's population. And so I wanted to empower women so that they could still feel alive and sexy and confident, attractive, and not be sort of fading to the background. Because I did feel that the media and the public perception was that a menopausal woman was old and grey, and it was time that we changed the narrative.
And in terms of menopause, right? If you could give us a little bit of a lecture, because I think the big issue for a lot of women, including myself, is that ignorance, not knowing when
And,
think you're going to
and
have
I,
it.
and I would say I might have been one of those women, sort of 10 years ago, 12 years ago, not know as much about it, because we don't really get taught much about it in medical school or even during our GP training. So menopause is your last menstrual period. So, we as women start to have periods around the time of 11, 12, 13, because our ovaries start producing these hormones, estrogen and progesterone, which are our female hormones. And throughout life, that we get them on a cyclical basis, and hence, if we don't get pregnant, we get a period every month. And menopause, all that means is actually that your periods have now stopped, and it's been a year since they last stopped. So it's a year without a period. You look back and you think, oh, that was when my last period was, and that's when you went through the menopause. I think the important part, really, or the point that women don't really know much about, is the perimenopause, that time beforehand, which can last about 10 years, 12 years. So it can be in your late 30s, early 40s, when those hormones are changing because your ovaries are not producing as much. Some days they may be producing more, some days they're less. So they're fluctuating, but ultimately declining. And that's when these symptoms that we call menopausal symptoms arise, like low mood, anxiety, hot flushes, weight loss, weight gain, sorry, not weight loss, and sort of brain fog. So there are about 34 symptoms of perimenopause that we have, but I think women aren't so aware of them.
So, patient who comes to see you, what exactly would they be looking for? What kind of help are we seeking when we come to see you? Is it diet, exercise? What kind of a help are we seeking?
I think some of it is just to get an understanding. Well, what's going on? Is this normal? And there's sort of different types of patients that come in. Some because their memory isn't as sharp. Their brain, they can't concentrate so much, so they've got brain fog, and they're at work and they're feeling that they're not, or they're not performing like they want to perform, and they're just about keeping their head above water, as it were. There are other women who have sort of physical symptoms like hot flushes in the day, sweats at night, not sleeping. So, that's impacting on their work, their relationships, their children. So women come in from the point of view of wanting to understand what's going on, what they can do about it, what does it mean, and so often some of the time is spent just understanding or explaining. Some of it is putting things into perspective for them. and sometimes it is prescribing hormone replacement therapy, and sometimes it is advising them on maybe the right supplements, diet, exercise that they can do to help themselves. So it's a combination of a holistic approach as well as the medicine thrown in.
And with mental health, how does this affect our mental health? Because women, I find that we could be so emotional sometimes, but when the menopause starts, I think it's a little bit more. How do you balance that?
Yeah, I mean, I think mental health is really important to mention, because women don't necessarily equate that to hormonal changes, and often doctors are prescribing antidepressants to them. And what's going on is, women start to experience symptoms like anxiety, and they may never have been that kind of anxious person. They feel overwhelmed. They find they're not coping as well, and a flatness in mood, which is called menopausal mood disorder. And it's because estrogen is almost like a natural happy chemical in our brains. It prevents the breakdown of serotonin. So when estrogen levels drop, so do serotonin. So our happy neurochemicals drop, and that's when we get this flatness in mood. And alongside it, women can feel that they're not concentrating so well, they've lost focus, and some of the symptoms may be also due to the fact they're not sleeping so well. Sometimes it may also be because they may be having heavy periods, and so because of that, they may also be anemic. So a lot of things are going on, and I think mental health really impacts your self-esteem, your confidence, and women start to feel that they've lost themselves and they've lost their identity.
I agree. I agree because I know I've read so much about it, and I've seen other women who've gone through it, especially when my mom did. I saw
Yeah.
mental health and the imbalance in it, and how it took a while for her to get over it and understand that, okay, this is now messing up with my head. I need to change things around. Another thing I'm also very concerned for women as well is the weight. Women
Yes.
are so cautious about, they work their whole life trying to keep a certain, their figure in check. What advice do you tend to give to people who are really trying their best to maintain a healthy weight while going through menopause?
So I usually say when you enter into your 40s, the third hormone that also plays a role with us is testosterone. And I know people think it's a male hormone, but we also have some, but our levels have dropped by the time we're in our 40s, and that helps us with muscle mass and also metabolism. So one of the things that tends to happen is we start to lose muscle and we start to gain weight, particularly around the middle. Some of it is the aging process. As women, we will naturally gain about 0.5 to 1 kilo per year if we carry on eating the way that we did in our 30s. So it's important to cut back a little bit on your calorie intake, about 200 calories or so. Also, women don't move as much as men, and I think keeping yourself moving, keeping yourself active is really important for mind and body to maintain that. And often I talk to women about their plate of food, to have a Mediterranean diet, but consider protein at each meal, because protein fills you up. Drink plenty of water as well, keep yourself hydrated. And ultimately, those are the things that you can do, because your hormones, your estrogen and progesterone hormones, are also impacting other hormones like insulin, which is the hormone that normally grabs your food and takes it into the cells and creates energy. But because your insulin's not working so well, it ends up storing it as fat. So we have to think about foods which are, have which will fill us up, but also to cut back a little bit on our calorie intake per day.
Dr. Harper, one thing you did mention, which I think is a big concern for a lot, is the muscles. You just said something about the
Yeah.
muscles. Because I've seen
And
a lot of women break an ankle. Like, oh, they break their wrist. I'm like, what happened? Every little thing. And this is unbelievable. What's wrong? What happens to our wrist and our muscles? Why do they break so easily when they're menopause? What happens?
well, the muscle mass declines because we lose our testosterone hormone. So even women who are slim feel that they're less toned. Also, our collagen in our skin, we lose that elasticity. So we find that skin is a bit sagging and wrinkling. And the other thing is, and I'm really glad that you mentioned it about the wrists and the ankles, is we are at a huge risk of osteoporosis. So our hormone estrogen helps to maintain our bone mass. And so when we go through menopause and estrogen drops, our bone mass drops, by about 30–40%, within the first couple of years. So it makes our bones thinner and more prone to fractures. And 1 in 3 women will end up with some kind of osteoporotic fracture post-menopause if we don't do anything about it.
Wow, Chris, that is so phenomenal that we really need to take care of that. So is there anything we need to do, or just
from the point of osteoporosis, I always say the kind of exercise that you should be doing is impactful. So cycling and swimming won't count. We need to have something where we're actually sort of sending shockwaves through our body, like running, skipping, jumping, dancing. So I often say it's like stomping exercises. We also need to do strength exercises. So I think women often think about cardio and fat burn. So, but they forget that they've got to use weights and build some muscle up as well. So the guidelines are at least 150 minutes of what we call cardio exercises per week, if you're doing it at a mild to moderate sort of pace. If you're doing it at a higher pace, you can get away with 75 minutes. And you should do 2 lots of strength training within the week and to maintain that. And from a diet point of view, make sure that you've got taking vitamin D, calcium to keep your bones strong and healthy. And so those are sort of the recommendations that I would always give every woman.
From your point of view, do you think the pandemic has had any effect on people going through menopause in any way, mentally or any kind of way?
Yeah, I think it's increased levels of anxiety, and I know it's done that across the board. But I think, women who are going through the perimenopause and menopause, their fluctuating hormones have made them feel more overwhelmed, more anxious, feeling that they're not coping as well. So actually, one of the things that's really helped a lot of these women is going on to HRT, hormone replacement therapy, which has helped to sort of rebalance some of their hormones, has made them feel sort of stronger, happier, more able during this time. So the pandemic has had a huge effect, I think, on women in particular, because I think we've borne the brunt of most of the cooking, homeschooling. I mean, I'm fed up of hearing, what are we going to eat tonight? And I think, a lot of women feel like that, and a lot of relationships have felt a bit strained in that time.
I agree, because I'm going through the same thing with my household. What we're going to eat tonight? What?
No,
I can't keep up with it. And a question: what is your message of hope to anyone going through the whole process of body change, especially women? Because I know you're all about empowering women to help them to be their best self, live their best lives. So anyone who's going through that process right now, what would be your message right now to them?
Well, they don't have to do it alone. There's lots of help out there. You don't have to suffer in silence, and this is a time, I would say, for a lot of women, they should put themselves first and invest in themselves, because as women, we don't. So invest in yourself and be proactive.
That is true. I love that. Invest in yourself, because as much as we refuse to take time to look after ourselves, it makes such a huge difference. Like me, when I'm tired, and people think investing in yourself is just investing money-wise. I'd say even that time-wise, if you're tired, take that time out, go take a nap, share responsibility. If you have someone who can help you, ask someone to help. If there's no one to help you, get the kids to really understand that, please, mommy just need this 15 minutes of me time. That's what I've been.
I mean, I often say, #me first. That's what I want to leave them with.
Oh, Dr. Harper, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much.